former Fulton County District Attorney and Sheriff.
Formerly a judge, and he knows a little bit about how these things go.
From Mohawk Valley, legal eagle, lawman.
He is the Sheriff of Fulton County, New York. Just such an amazing guy.
This is the Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.
This is the Rich Giardino Show. I'm Rich Giardino. This is where crime, the Constitution, and politics meet. Our guest tonight is Stephen Bandrilli. Stephen is the president and co-founder of Arbalest Quarrel. He serves as president and CMO. He's a decorated veteran police officer with the NYPD. And Stephen also does columns for Ammoland, and his partner in Arbalest Quarrel is Roger Katz, who's an attorney. A very well-researched group. After Stephen left NYPD, he owned several security firms, and he does an awful lot of education and writing on up-to-the-date minute for his newsletter. Stephen, why don't you tell me a little bit about the newsletter, the Arbalest, and what it means, because a lot of people won't understand it.
Well, first and foremost, after that grand introduction, I better be good.
You better.
How am I going to live up to that?
So tell us where's the Arbalest name come from? How did you guys come up with it?
Okay, a little history here. When then Governor Andrew Cuomo passed the New York SAFE Act, I got very upset. And I called two guys, two good friends, Roger Katz, an attorney in Cleveland, and my friend Vincent Pacifico, a business partner in the meat business up in the Bronx. And I said, we got to do something. Are you interested? And we all agreed. And the Arbalest Quarrel was formed for the purpose of researching very important issues concerning the Second Amendment. That's how we started. And then we grew beyond that to include major issues involving the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in general, and then important political things that are happening today. And our mantra is to tell the truth and to be accurate, not just opinions. Although we are opinions, we present what is factual. And we publish articles, and we're very, very happy that Ammoland Shooting Sports News, which is a major website for the gun industry, involving hunting, involving gun rights, involving ammunition, sports shooting, whatever it is, they cover it all, and they publish 99% of our articles, and they add video feed and photo images, which makes it very, very interesting. So if any of your listeners are interested in looking up the Arbalest Quarrel, they could also do the same by just going on Ammoland and searching Arbalest Quarrel, and an archive will come up. And whatever topic that they're interested in, they could click on it. And our services are free. We offer it as a public service, and we're self-monetized. So we're not advertising, we're not soliciting any funds.
Let me ask you this. Ammoland, as soon as you release an article, they publish it, correct? They publish your articles as soon as you release them, correct?
They publish our articles. They usually edit them somewhat because our articles are kind of academic, and they're written for specifically for attorneys and people that are academics that are interested in the very complicated subjects that we write about. And then Ammoland and Roger helps them by doing a cut and paste. So what might be a 5,000 or 6,000 word article will be reduced to 1,000 words, which is readable within 10 or 15 minutes, along with the video feed, which makes it very exciting and very interesting.
Yeah. In the interest of fairness, I met Stephen and Roger years ago when I took a position on the Second Amendment and against Cuomo on some of the COVID things, but more the Second Amendment. And they did interview me, and they left most of my interview on the cutting room floor, which was probably smart for their article, because It was about the Second Amendment and some other articles they were writing. And I appreciate that opportunity, Stephen. So I thank you. You know, what I want to get into with you is we've had three pivotal moments in society, two of them in the last 2 weeks. Well, actually, two of them in the last week. So what's happened to America is there's millions of people that feel that the 2020 election had some improprieties and that there was a lot of inappropriate stuff. And I say this on all my podcasts. I offer you Stephen's opinions. You can accept or reject Stephen's opinions as you wish, accept what you feel credible and believable and based on facts, and disregard those you don't want. But this is a forum to let people be heard who have interesting views and who explain what they believe is going on in this country. And so three things that we're talking about is we're talking about the election of 2020, when millions of Americans believe that Donald Trump won, and that there was a lot of tampering with evidence, even regardless of what the court said, the people still did not believe that it was a fair election. Millions of people in this country. The second was the attempted assassination of Donald Trump um, in Pennsylvania. And today, as we're taping this, the head of the Secret Service testified, and it was awful. Her testimony was so frustrating that both the Democratic Minority Leader, Jamie Raskin, and the senior Comey, the senior Republican on the panel, sent a letter demanding her resignation because she did not answer most of the questions. She obfuscated and did a lot of other things. So that's interesting. And then you take Joe Biden's abrupt resignation or withdrawal as the presidential candidate after being hammered by his own party, members of his own party, and the media, who said after the debate, "Oh, look, he's got dementia, he's failing, he's got neurological issues." And what's really weird about that, when the Republicans said that for the 6 months before, the mainstream media and the Democrats said it was fake news and the Republicans were altering things. So tell us about your recent article on what it means to be an American in light of those three situations, Stephen.
Sheriff, I do have to let you know we are having some audio problems, but I'm going to do my best to keep this thing going.
Okay.
Anyone who cooks at all knows what a funnel is. And a funnel has a large top, and you put stuff in it, and it has a small circular bottom. We have a very complicated situation here in America. Let's try and make it simple. All of the problems we have are created because we elect people in office that don't represent us. And we need to keep in mind that the freedoms that we have and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that we cherish and what makes us Americans is not the plan for the radical left that wants to destroy our country. So your listeners, I'm sure, whether they're from your rural county or from New York City where I live, we all want safety. We want our freedoms. We want our country. We want the American dream. We want to know that our rights are going to be protected. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent, it doesn't matter. Whether you're black or Hispanic or Asian, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. We need to respect that premise. Now, when it comes to the Second Amendment and when it comes to what is an American, the Obelisk Quarrel has done a tremendous amount of research on that subject. And we have published articles, and recently we published a set of articles that your readers, I'm sure, are going to find interesting. And to that light, we emphasize the need to vote. This is the final battle. Donald Trump reminds us. Dick Morris has a book, The Final Battle. There is no question about it. We found that over 10 million gun owners are not registered to vote. And if you're not registered to vote, you can't vote. And if you don't vote, it's over. Now, Pennsylvania alone has 500,000. That's a swing state. You have Wisconsin, North Carolina. These are swing states, Michigan. So what we have is there's a fellow named John DeLoca, a very dear friend of mine, and I sold him my gun range. There's a very nice gun range called Seneca Sporting Range in Ridgewood, New York. And John is doing a voter rally. He's getting all his members and he's contacting them and he's saying, if you have not registered to vote, please let us know. We have the forms here. We have someone here to help you fill them out. We'll put the stamp on it. And if you do that, we'll give you an extra month's free membership and a free safety instruction course. So if every gun range, if every sporting center in the entire state did that, we'd have a landslide of an election. That's how we're going to protect our rights. That's how we're going to have safety. And that's how we're going to be good Americans and bring back our country.
You know, what's funny is Second Amendment is constantly under attack, and lawful gun owners are constantly under attack. So every time there's a shooting, every time there's an incident, they try to weaken the Second Amendment and take more rights away, not from everyone, but from law-abiding citizens. So it's the law-abiding citizens who are punished for the criminals, when we never hear anything about the inner city shootings of young children by drug dealers. We never hear anything about the gang shootings. What we hear about is when there's a mass shooting, which is, listen, one life is too many lives to lose. But my point is simple. There's a lot of violence. We have to address it. And people don't understand this. Under our country, every year, 50% of the gun deaths and 50% of the gun injuries are from suicides or attempted suicides. And there's a gun violence website, and they started every year they've had suicides. This year they've taken suicides off and said we're reconstructing, because they don't want people to know that most of the harm caused by guns is to individuals themselves. Obviously, every loss is a great loss. And in this country, an innocent person died at the Trump rally, and also there were a volunteer firefighter, a chief of the fire department, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family. But what they do is they quote unquote those people that want to restrict your rights, and use Second Amendment rights and First Amendment rights now. So you're 100% right. We got to encourage people to vote, and it's the gun guys have a lot to lose. If you're a person who values your Second Amendment, your First Amendment, or any of your amendments guaranteed by the Bill of Rights, the way to ensure victory is through voting. And that's what I think is the final battle. And people like to turn it around. We're not talking about radical concepts. We're not talking about riots. We're not talking about anything violent. We're talking about voting. I have to take a second to say this is the Rich Giardino Show. We're with Steve DeAndrilli, and he is the one of the three principals in I can't even pronounce it, Stephen. I always screw up. And the arbalist quarrels, and he can explain where that comes from, the bow and arrows and the quarreling in this country. And they write articles constantly, Roger Katz, and they constantly write articles updating Americans on your rights, the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, and it's published in Ammoland newsletter and online. I encourage you to go to Ammoland and read their items, read their things. But listen, if you want more conversations like this, you have to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, X, Apple, Spotify, and any other platform where you can get quality podcasts. Now, Stephen, back to us. Tell us what it means to be an American under this article that you and Roger are working on to be published, if it's not already out there. What does it mean to be an American, and what is going on with the attacks on Americans in 2024?
Well, I invite your readers to read our article and actually read it on Ammoland. But to make it simple, again, to me, to be an American, you have to first be a citizen. That's a requirement. And you also have to owe allegiance to the country. Unless you're an American Indian, and there are very few that I know of, except for the senator in Massachusetts, hey, how are you, Elizabeth Warren. We're all immigrants, but we came here legally, if not us as first generation. For example, my grandparents, they came here, they immediately applied for permanent residency, they worked instead of getting free handouts. They then applied for U.S. citizenship, became naturalized, and they instilled that in their children. And their children became my father, and et cetera, et cetera. So you're a citizen, you owe allegiance to the country, and you do have to exercise your right to keep and bear arms because you have an obligation to defend the country against tyranny, against the predatory beast, the predatory man, and the predatory man-beast of government. That is an American to us. And we break it down and we elaborate on it. And I invite your listeners to check it out, because I hope that with a Trump victory, we're going to realize it again, and we're going to live the American dream, and we're going to keep it alive. We are not a constitutional republic anymore. We have become a dictatorship. This administration in 3 years has caused so much damage that this is it. This is the most important election of my lifetime, and probably in the history of the United States. People better wake up. They better realize it. You better get your family together, your friends together. You better get everyone that you know, and in a very civil way, educate them. And one of the things you could do to educate yourself is view Fox News, Newsmax, read the Epoch Times, the Washington Times, and surf the channels. Also, ask yourself, when I go on CNN or MSNBC or a local news channel and I hear a story, and then I go on Fox or Newsmax and the same story is a lot different, why? To the point that you brought up, the Democrats don't want to tell you the truth about guns. They label things assault weapon. There's no such thing as an assault weapon. Or gun violence. What is gun violence? They talk about democracy. They never define what is the term democracy. They purposely do not want to have an armed citizenry. They want power. And an armed citizenry is a threat to them. Okay? And you and I know, I was on the police department. You're still working in law enforcement. The average police officer that's walking the beat or in a patrol car has no problem with the honest citizen having a firearm because they're responsible and they could come to the aid. In fact, what brought us together was the story in the NRA, what was it? The America's First Freedom magazine.
Yes, yep.
That I read, and I reached out to you, where your deputy was getting his ass kicked, and had it not been for a veteran citizen to help, he could have been hurt really badly from some criminal, violent criminal with a warrant from out of state. So we know that responsible, law-abiding citizens with guns are not the problem, but the Democrats don't want to hear it. And they vote in block. They stick together because that's their goal. Like I said, it's a threat to them. Now, take it, for example, in your county. You could get a concealed carry permit, a concealed handgun permit, right?
Correct.
You can carry it in all counties in New York State. You can't take your gun into New York City where you probably need it the most. This is crazy. We have a governor that's absolutely crazy. She swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and New York State. And what does she do when the Bruin decision comes down from the Supreme Court? She decides to create her own set of rules and says, okay, we're going to give you a carry permit, but we're going to restrict it to where you can carry it. And the restrictions probably have more acreage than the entire state. So this has
Yeah.
got to stop. And you know that the Antonio case is going to be heard by the Supreme Court. It's just a matter of time. But we can get an expedited decision by electing Trump. He'll change it in the first day. So the courts take too long. We need to be active, but we need to act smart, and we need to vote.
I think you're 100% right. People have to vote. One thing that I've noticed in my lifetime is the coarseness of politics. The Antonin Scalias and Ruth Bader Ginsburgs, the Tip O'Neills and Ronald Reagans, they're gone. Those people and that mentality that were battling during the day and at night we're having dinner together and conversing as friends, it's gone. I have so many friends who don't agree with positions I take, so many friends that agree with them, and it gets so personal. I mean, I've been accused of, what's the matter with you? We thought you were more intelligent than that. And I said, listen, I don't endorse everything that Donald Trump says. I don't like the way he talks to people. I do think his policies are good for this country, good for America, and good for people here, and makes us safer. Immigration is the perfect thing. We've had 100,000 fentanyl deaths in the last 12 months. We used to have, too many was 20,000 when President Trump was president, but opening the border has done nothing but increase it's done nothing to decrease the number of deaths. It's increased them dramatically. We have the cartels in every state. We have gangs. And I tell people, when you see in the big cities where they say they found a person decapitated or with their hands off or their neck cut, those are gang signs from Mexico. Mexican gangs do that. It's very violent. It's to send a message to others. And they've infiltrated. And people look at me like I've got three heads. No, it's documented and proven. In our country, immigration is not allowed to ask a young child who's with an adult if they're there freely or if they're related. Under the regulations, they can only ask the adult if that your child. So and then we have a lot of children who are abused and exploited who are brought over the border. It's awful because of simple policies that can be changed. We've seen it with the criminal justice system. The intent is great. Yeah, people shouldn't be locked up and in jail. Now what they do is, oh, we got retail theft problem. Well, after the second or third time, if you'd put bail on them and put them away, we wouldn't have a retail theft problem. We had to modify the law at least twice because with bail in New York, it's craziness. When you were on the job, and when I started in 1979 as a village police officer, if a fellow beat up his wife or a domestic violence incident, and it was minor injury, thank God, we used to put sergeant's bail on him and put him in jail for the weekend until they sobered up. If somebody resisted arrest or if somebody fled the police, we'd arrest them and put sergeant's bail on them. There's a consequence that was immediate. There's no immediacy now. And I have to again say, listen, if you want to hear conversations like Stephen and mine, you want to have a voice and you want to have people who will tell you what's going on the ground, then please like, share, and subscribe to the Rich Giardino Show on Apple, YouTube, X, and Spotify. I know it's an ad, Stephen, but I got to do that to keep the program running. I will tell you this, that it's sad because my grandparents came over like your parents. They had to go to Ellis Island. They had to be tested. They had to have a sponsor. They had to have a job, and there was follow up. And this notion that there is workers looking for work in this country when we know there's gangbangers coming in, we know there's people on terrorist watch lists, we know that there's people from over 87 other countries that are coming in through Mexico. And there's not 87 countries in South America. So they're not, it's ridiculous. It's not South Americans coming here for a better life and a job. There are too many criminals coming in with them. And we've got to do something. And that something is we got to change what's going on in Washington and on state level in many states. As we wrap up, what do people have to know? As you said, I mean, if we could mobilize those 10 million, even if 5 million, we want all 10 million, that would make a difference across the battleground states and ensure a victory for restoring America to its place as the strongest country in the world and to restoring make things safer. It's not going to stop all crime. It's going to go a long way in making us safer. When you talk to Border Patrol agents, you talk to law enforcement, you talk to prosecutors, most are demoralized, most feel beaten down when they're the bad guys. Police now get investigated when they're involved in a shooting, and they lose their right that they're innocent until proven guilty. The rights have shifted. They put handcuffs on the police and taking them off of the criminals. But one thing I always say when it comes to gun violence, and you probably agree with me, I tell people I'll give them $1,000 if they can find me one shooter, one active shooter, one murderer who saw a sign that said gun-free zone, turned around and went home with their gun. They target gun-free zones because they know people aren't going to be there to protect themselves. So as we wrap up, they can go to, you say, Ammoland. Here's the problem. A mile from my house is a place called Animal Land. Animal Land is a vacation place for kids to go and see animals of all natures, giraffes, everything. So it's hard for me to keep saying Ammoland. I want to say Animal Land by nature and support the local businesses. But go to Ammoland online, subscribe, listen to the Arbalist Quarrels. Again, just tell them again where Arbalist comes from and Quarrels and how you came up with the name.
Delightful. Leonardo da Vinci, during the medieval ages and the Renaissance, he created an obelisk. An obelisk is different than a bow and arrow, for example, the bow. The bow you can pull back, but an obelisk is so intense that you have to crank it. And an obelisk has a projectile. The bolt is a quarrel, and the quarrel in English is also an argument. So what we did is we took the weapon, which was the only weapon at that time that could send a projectile that could penetrate the knight's armor, and we made a pen out of it. So if you look at our logo, you'll see that it's a play on words, but the obelisk quarrel. And if you go on our website and you go to the top and you click on About, it not only gives you our bios, but it tells you the history about why we formed the obelisk quarrel, where we got the name. It has the blog page. It has the book review page. So I invite everyone, all your listeners, to introduce themselves to our website. It's free, and there it is. And Ammoland takes what we do and makes it so much more exciting, as well as many other websites. And the NRA has just published a few of my responses to their mail page. And we've got to get back that organization too. And we've got to support all the good organizations. The New York State Pistol and Rifle Association is doing a great job. The Second Amendment Foundation is doing a great job. But the bottom line is educate yourself, be a good citizen, and vote.
Voting. It's so important. Stephen, thank you very much for coming on. Next time, I'd like to see if I can have Roger and you both on together. And this is, again, the Rich Giardino Show. Please like, share, and subscribe on Apple, YouTube, X, and all other platforms. Our guest has been Stephen DeAndrilli, who's part of Obelisk Quarrels, and also as a frequent columnist at Ammoland, which is online, and you can subscribe to that as well. Constantly updating the Second Amendment, letting people know what it's all about. Additionally, this guest, like all others, you're free to adopt and accept any of the points they make or reject any of the points you don't agree with. But we wanted to offer you an opportunity to hear what others are saying about what's going on in this country. Please register and please vote, and encourage others to get out and vote. Thank you.
Like and subscribe to The Rich Giardino Show, part of the Elite Influencer Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time on The Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.